Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Right Way podcast. Today, I'm joined by Anna, who is the first female guest we've had on the podcast, female coach and bodybuilder. Anna, thank you for coming on. How's your day
Thank
been so far?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. I feel very honoured to be the first female on here. But yeah, it's been good. Training later on today. So yeah, I think did you train this morning?
Yeah, I had legs. Absolutely unreal session, as Charlotte
Yeah.
would say.
Oh, of course, of course. Good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So first of all, with where you are now, are you currently in your off season, right?
Yes. So very deep into off season. I've been bulking, growing, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
for just over a year now.
Mhm.
And we're still looking to push and probably until the end of January, beginning of February, um, hopefully, just depending on like appetite, because at the minute my appetite is not the best. Yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle, but that's just what bodybuilding is, pushing to the extremes. But I do love it at the same time because you get so many benefits from the gym, like getting so strong. So yeah, we're just going to keep pushing until then, and then probably do like a mini cut, and then just push again and keep going, probably for a couple more years,
Mhm.
before I decide to compete. So yeah,
What division do you want to compete in?
figure I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
I think that I know that I don't have enough like muscle maturity to get into figure yet,
Mhm.
but I definitely feel like my heart lies in figure. So I would rather take more time away from the stage and then grow as much as I can and then be able to like actually compete and do well in the figure division rather than like jumping straight into it. As I know some people do. Um, because they want to, some people do it for the experience, but then some people do it to do like well or actually, at least place or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I'm the exact
rather,
same.
yeah, I would rather take the time away from the stage. Like as much as I would love to prep, as much I'd like love literally if Loz turned around and was like, oh, let's prep next year, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. But I would rather be able to do well and know I have like enough muscle to just at least fit in on stage.
Mhm.
And I know that I don't have that yet. So yeah, I'm just taking the time away to make sure I do. So
Okay. What made you want to do figure over bikini? Because like, I mean, it's am I right in saying like it's the most common division for girls to go down? Because it's like the is it the easiest to fit in, or is it just the one that kind of like? Because I'm not well versed, obviously.
yeah. So I would say that for bikini, you don't necessarily need as much muscle
Hmm.
for figure and like bodybuilding and physique. Um, and you could say it's the easiest, but then it's also very dependent on your shape. Like I'm not very bikini. Like you need a very like nice figure, like you need capped delts and then big glutes. And when I do bikini poses, like they just don't fit my structure.
Hmm.
And because I've got quite a wide back, that doesn't like look good in the bikini category. So obviously it also depends on like your structure as well as like how much muscle you have. But I think if people, if they're really like into bodybuilding and they want to do a prep, then it's probably like the easier category to go for. Just because you don't need to be as lean either.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, if you want to do it for the experience, but then some people really suit bikini and if they have like a really good shape and have a really good like amount of muscle, like you can do really well. It's not an easy category, like no prep or any like bodybuilding is obviously not going to be easy. So yeah, but I just don't think my heart is in bikini and obviously my shape is not either. So I'd rather like go for figure. So yeah.
No, it makes sense. I think like especially for anyone who's watching, thinking about going into competing, it's worth like playing to your strengths. There's no point like trying to be classic if you don't have a classic build. If you have like wide hips and narrow shoulders, do you know what I mean? It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, you know, coaches need to be transparent with their clients as well
Yeah.
because there's a lot of that in the industry where, I feel like especially for guys, like classic is like everyone wants to do classic because of C-bum, right?
Yeah.
But realistically, looking at your build, are you actually going to do well, or are you only doing it because you've got a big ego and you want to do that? You've got to be realistic because
Yeah.
you know as much muscle as you're going to put on, bodybuilding is realistically a genetics game. And at the end of the day, no matter how many lateral raises you do, how much work you're doing in the gym, it doesn't take away from the fact that your structure might not be built for that. Um, with Loz, is Loz competing in the same division as well when she goes to
Yes.
compete?
Yes. So she is going to be doing figure as well. I believe. I know her plans before were kind of around like women's bodybuilding. But then her plans changed. I think she's going to do figure first. Um, so yeah, I think she's competing in 2025. And I'm hoping to do 2026, but obviously I'll see how I go. Yeah, I believe she's doing figure in 2025, which will be really cool. So yeah.
That'll be her first outing, right? She hasn't competed before.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, she did
Yeah.
yeah, she did bikini a few years ago. I think it was 2021 she did it. Um yeah, she did bikini there. That was when she was coached by Cuba.
Okay.
Um and then yeah, so she's made the transition to go into figure, but she's massive. I always look at her physique and I'm like, wow, that
Yeah,
is
she
a
is ridiculously strong, like scary
yeah.
strong.
Yeah, I know. And like I don't know if you've met her, but she's like really short as well.
Mhm.
She's like 4'11" or something, and it's just like she's just an
Oh,
absolute beast.
4'11.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, she's like a
Um,
beast. So
how did you actually like get into the gym? Like I always ask the exact same question because I always like knowing people's background. Like go all the way back. I'm talking like when you first, walked into a gym and then kind of like how you got to where you are now working with Loz.
so I kind of went to the gym very on and off. It would be like a couple of days a week, and then I wouldn't do it for weeks, and then like it was very on and off. But I would always go because my gym that I went to had like a girls section or like a ladies section, so I'd always go in there like very self-conscious,
Mm.
like the usual, just sticking to cardio as like every girl starts
Go like
out.
get a workout.
Yeah. And and then I think it was the year of lockdown, um, where I wasn't working. I literally didn't do anything in my life, which was the same for everyone else.
Yeah.
And I found like my mental health definitely went down because of it. Like I just didn't have anything in my life. Like I didn't do anything. I was like really struggling with, I don't know, a bit of like mental health and just stuff like that. And then in the new year, when like everything had opened up, I decided, I was like, right, this is going to be the year. And it actually turned into the year where I completely committed to the gym.
Mhm.
And I got a PT to like make sure I was like actually going. And she was amazing. She literally taught me everything that I know, pretty much, is like all the basics. And she pretty much got me into it. And then after that, I just came away from PTing, so I felt like I like knew what I was doing by then. And then I was just training like on my own, just doing my own thing really. Loving like the whole gym lifestyle, but I didn't really know like much about nutrition or like bulking or kind of, I was kind of just like eating like food. Like
Yeah.
there was no like real direction with
Calories to calories.
yeah. And there was no like real direction. And then I think it was it 20 beginning of 2022, so that was last year. I then got a coach because I wanted to diet, but I didn't really know how to do it like properly. So I got a different coach. It wasn't Loz at this time. And then we went through a little diet. And then I actually met Charlie after I'd finished that. It was like a 12-week diet, I think.
I'm actually curious about this. How did you guys meet?
Oh, it's really boring through Instagram.
Ah,
It's really boring.
I was hoping for like a really, really interesting story, but fair play.
No, because I go to like two gyms. So I go to La Coach and then I also go to a gym near me as well because La Coach is actually quite far away from me.
Mhm.
And then Charlie used to go to the gym that I go to now, and we just knew like mutual people. We'd followed people, and then he noticed me on someone's story, and then he just like slid into the DM. So that's how it worked. Pretty
Oh,
basic. And then I met Charlie then, and obviously he was coached by AJ. And at the time I had very much like a lifestyle coach. It wasn't like bodybuilding or anything. It was just like general lifestyle. And then pretty much Charlie got me into bodybuilding. And then he was like, oh, why don't you go for Loz and stuff like that. And yeah, I ended up going with Loz in the end, and haven't looked back since. So yeah.
Sick. So the main reason I wanted to get you on is because, well, number one, first female coach, but I've coached, I think, two females, and I thought it'd be good to get like, you know, a female's point of view when discussing these topics, because I don't just want it to be like male orientated. um I've found like the number one thing that like most female athletes struggle with is like going through an off season, gaining body fat. How did you kind of find your approach with that first off season, and like did you have any kind of like mental battles with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that is like very not difficult to speak about, but I know that a lot of females like struggle with the whole bulking. And I don't really like the word bulking because I think the word in itself just sounds scary to people.
Massing.
Yeah, yeah. Or just I just like to call it a growing phase.
Mhm.
Um, but with myself, I when I went through the diet with my previous coach, I kind of I got on pretty low food and I was doing like loads of cardio and during that diet I didn't feel the best. So like I had very low energy levels.
Mhm.
I was like very weak in the gym. I started feeling all the because I was like relatively lean and I started feeling the things that people would like describe they felt in a prep. Like I know it's not the same, but you know
Yeah.
when you get really low energy and you're just not really enjoying life and you're just
Was
like
fatigue management just like not kind of included with that kind of coach, or was it just because like you think, you know, it was your first experience, so you didn't really have like a good kind of gauge, or was it just like
um
a diet phase?
I think it was a bit of both. Like I hadn't really been through a diet before, so like my mindset probably wasn't in the best spot. So like I didn't really know like how to deal with being hungry or, you know, getting to a point where you're like losing strength and like your mindset with dieting has to be like in a really good spot in order for you to diet, you know. So I don't think my mindset was very good, but then I also don't think fatigue management was great either. So I think all those things combined, like I felt awful like at the end of it. That's another reason why I moved to Laws. Like, I just didn't feel good by the end of it.
Mhm.
And I think me feeling that in that diet made me like not even think twice about putting body fat on.
Mhm.
Like at that point, I didn't really care that much because I saw so many more benefits of like getting strong in the gym, like having so much energy. Like I really enjoyed that feeling. And I felt like I hadn't had it like from the diet, obviously. So coming out of it, I was like, oh, this is so much better. And I actually don't struggle very much with like putting on body fat. Like I like mentally I'm actually like very okay with it because I very much look at like getting stronger in the gym and that actually means so much more to me
So
than
you've switched, like you've made that switch from like, oh, I'm not putting on fat, I'm actually doing this, and like realizing the purpose of it is to get stronger within the gym.
yeah.
Because I said the same thing, like even though I'm a guy, especially like this off season I'm doing now is what is the first time I'm like I feel confident enough to actually push up, because I'm like I recognize I need to put on size. I've dieted down before, and like I honestly think there is no worse feeling than dieting down and being like, I look the exact same. Like I put in all this effort, I like showed up every single day thinking I've progressed, and then diet down, you're like, I just look the same. And I think if
Yeah.
you make that switch from, oh, I'm gaining body fat to just, you know, I'm getting stronger in the gym, it makes it so much easier.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think that whenever people think about like growing phases, they're so hyper focused on them putting on body fat. And it's almost like it's so hard to explain or like say it to someone like, oh, just forget about like
Mm.
putting on body fat. Like it doesn't matter. Like there's so much more to that. And I think people focus so much and they think that like their self-worth comes from their body composition. So they think like, they're going to be so much better, or they're going to get so much more validation from other people because they're leaner. And I think people are so hyper focused on their appearance that it just takes away from their journey. Like, yes, like someone says they will come to me and like they want to build muscle, but then they don't want to put on body fat, and I'm like, well, you're gonna have to like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get anywhere. But I think the main thing is, I don't think people are like majorly scared of like growing phases. It's more the fact that they don't have the best body image and they don't have a good relationship with either their food or their body, and you almost have to like go to the root cause of like why that's happening and what's going on to actually overcome that. It's not necessarily like telling a client like, oh, but you're going to get really strong, so it doesn't matter that you're putting on body fat. It's more, okay, so how can we improve your body image? How can we improve your relationship with your body in order for you to feel so much better and feel so much confident going into a growing phase, you know? And it's, yeah, it's hard when like a client comes to you and they say they want to go into a growing phase. So we start going into a growing phase. Then you notice all these little things, like they're very hyper focused on like their scale weight, or they're very hyper focused on like that. Honestly, like the people that struggle the most are the people that almost do, they're like so on it with their food and their nutrition. Their whole life is just like revolved around bodybuilding and around the gym.
Mm.
And I think when people are so focused on that and they're like their whole life is like taken up by it, that's when they are so focused on their physique, and it just takes away from like the whole growing phase in itself. And I think it's really important to make sure that people also go out and enjoy their life and not have so much focus on the gym, because when you start doing that, you then start hating the gym, you start hating yourself, you start hating like how you look and stuff, and then you just hate the whole process. So it's really important to make sure they have like a whole balanced lifestyle as well, because the less they focus on being so on it with their food or so on it with the gym, then the more they like enjoy the process, you know.
I think a lot of people kind of get in this bubble, like with what you said, where if they are literally just like live, breathe bodybuilding, they kind of forget. Because I was talking to my mate Zal the other day, because he's like he's kind of like down that kind of lifestyle route, but like he's in the group chat where there's like, we've just had people compete, you're seeing all these people and he's comparing himself to others. And like, it's such a common thing where, you kind of get into this bodybuilding rabbit hole and you kind of forget, like, you look better than like 99% of people. People
Yeah,
aren't going to the gym, people aren't tracking their food daily. And even when you are like peak off season, like you still look better than the majority of people. And I think when you're so into that bubble, and like with me, I really struggled with my mental health last year, because all that's literally what my life was. It was bodybuilding. My Instagram was just like IFBB pros, and you just get kind of so obsessed with it where sometimes you're like, right, I need to take a step back, because you need to realize, like, yeah, like, look, this hobby you have is great, but you need to realize, like, there is more to life. And once you create that balance and don't put so much stress on yourself, and like, especially when it comes to females, and like certain coaches I've seen, like, with different approaches, like, you need to read the individual and kind of understand what's going to benefit them. Like, when I concluded a diet phase with one of my female clients, and there was a point where I just removed her tracking her scale weight, because every single week it would be like, oh, I've only dropped this amount, and she would get so down about it, to the point where she was like, I at one point I was like, I'm pretty sure, she's not actually like eating what she's saying she's eating, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you need to realize that this person's like mental health comes first. And I think, the industry is in a way where everyone's like, you have to do this, you have to do that. You need to like be your own coach, and like, don't be afraid to kind of go outside the norm. Like, I've removed logbooks, and like, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, why would you do that? But especially in the diet phase, and I feel like, especially for females as well, as that body fat level comes down, like, numbers will rapidly drop. And if you're emotionally attached to your numbers, like, it really does have like a very big impact on mental health.
yeah, you're so right about that. You know, you have to, like, not every client is the same, and you have to do what works for them. And if that means like taking away the scale weight or like taking away logbooking, like if that's going to benefit them, like you have to do that. I also think like you're so right with, comparing with people on social media or on group chats or even just someone next to you in the gym. It's so like difficult to get around that. And you can't just say to someone like, oh, don't compare yourself.
Mm,
It's hard not to, but you have, like, I always say to people, like, when you're making a comparison, like, is it a fair comparison? So if someone is just like a lifestyle person who's going to the gym trying to build muscle, and you're comparing yourself to like an influencer who has been competing for like 8 years, they've been to the gym for like 12 years, and I don't know, they track their food every single day, they've, or they're probably on steroids,
mm,
like that is not a fair comparison. You can't compare yourself to someone like that. And also, is the comparison going to help you? Probably not. Like, it's not going to help. It might give you some motivation, but it's not good motivation. Like, you can't motivate yourself because you want to look like someone, and you're comparing yourself to someone who's been going to the gym for like years and years and years. Like, it's not going to help you mentally. So like, why are you doing it? Like, you may get that like initial comparison, which is fine, but you can't be sitting there and like getting yourself down about it, because it's not going to help your journey whatsoever. It's going to hold you back more than anything.
mm, mm. Um, I was gonna say, because I don't do it personally, but I've seen coaches like when females come onto their cycle, like they'll manage like their training, their nutrition different. The way I approach it is like I educate female athletes about like, look, this at this period of your cycle, you might be a bit hungrier, you might be a bit weaker. This kind of thing happens. But I was curious, do you manipulate any variables when clients come onto cycle or anything like that? Or because personally, I think it doesn't need to be done. I can understand the logic and why you would do it. But personally, I just think it adds more stress to it. But everyone's inclined to their own opinion.
I don't make
Mhm.
any changes on their cycle. Obviously it is person dependent. Like, everyone gets different symptoms, everyone deals with it differently. But like you said, I just let them know, like, you may be a little bit weaker. There are actually studies to show that you aren't necessarily weaker around your cycle. It's more that because of the cramps and the pains that you get,
Mm,
it's very like, it's painful when you train sometimes. So like, that is what's probably going to make you a little bit weaker, or you just struggle to get after it, because like you're not really in the mood for it. But I don't really coach them differently. I just let them know exactly like you said, just you may be a little bit weaker, especially in a diet. Like, it's more of a mental thing than anything. Cravings are going to be up, hunger is going to be up. But it's just a case of like trying to stay really disciplined. If it becomes an issue where like every time it's on the cycle, like I don't know, they end up having like extra chocolate, or I don't know, just something extra every time,
mm,
I will probably like pop their calories up a little bit
mhm.
um in around their cycle, just to help prevent that. So at least they have a little bit more food and they can like be a little bit more full, because at the end of the day, like, most of my clients are lifestyle, they're not bodybuilders. Like, I'm not coaching bodybuilders,
I'm
so
I'm in the exact same boat. Like I think early on in your career, and I know I've got some questions kind of about coaching. We'll go into that in a bit, but
yeah.
like I think everyone kind of expects like coaching to be like, oh, I'm a bodybuilder straight away, bodybuilders, but not
No.
the case.
With lifestyle, like, you have to be a little bit more lenient and a little bit like easier. Like, you're not going to coach them the same as a bodybuilder. So you just have to do what works for the client. And if having a little bit extra food around your cycle is going to help them, then do that. But it's just a case of like managing it as it comes. But I wouldn't say I really make any major changes for my clients around their cycle.
Okay, cool. Um, did you want to get into some questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Let me see. I screenshot them. Where are they? So the first one is number one piece of advice for females looking to improve their physique.
I think well, I suppose it depends what, if they want to like get a coach, or kind of like what their goal is.
Mhm.
Um, But if they want to improve their physique, I would say like get a coach would probably be my number one. Because I just think that the benefits that I found from getting a coach was just like no other. As much as my PT like helped me out, like, I think PTs are great, you know, to help you on the gym floor if like you're a beginner. But if you kind of already know what you're doing and you know you don't really need a PT, having a coach is so beneficial. It's not necessarily like just because just so you can reach your physique goal, but it's just about managing your whole lifestyle, and it's almost just like someone that's there to like help you through everything and just someone you can go to about everything. And I almost think of myself as like my client's own little cheerleader, you know, like you just help them through everything. And you can, and you know, we can look after their nutrition and, you know, training, and also like how their life is going and help with stress management. It's like a whole lifestyle coaching, and it's really just that next step from a PT. And yeah, I just found so many benefits from it, and I've like reached my goal like so much quicker than I ever have done like with my coach. So I always say that, you know, if you want to make changes, like I would definitely hire a coach.
100% agree. I was going to say, like, I think, like, on my journey, like, I've always had people say to me, like, oh, you're a PT, you're a coach. Why do you have a coach? Doesn't make sense. But like,
Yeah.
there's so many factors where, like, yeah, I know how to do what I want to do, but one, from like, not only from like bodybuilding standpoint, business standpoint, I want to be a great coach. So like learning from someone is the best way to do it, especially where they're where you want to be. And as well as that, like, I found for me, Max to me is like my therapist. Like, that's like the number one benefit, because like
Yeah.
I don't really struggle anymore with, like, you know, turning up to training, sticking to food. It's more like I'll have moments where I'm way too hard on myself, and I
Yeah.
need to communicate that and have someone to be like, look, okay, this is what went wrong. This is how we're gonna, you know, change that around. And I think that's one of the biggest things people don't kind of realize when it comes to like getting a coach. And like, the accountability is great, but sometimes like being able to express, like, I'm having a shit day today, and telling that person why, and just having someone to listen, and, you know, have a coach who wants you to achieve your goals as much as yourself, will just like tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
um and as well, to just add to that question, I think, like, personally, I'd say, obviously, just jump into a gaining phase. The obvious one being, but I definitely think, you know, getting a coach, and obviously just, I think mapping stuff out as well really helps with, like, when I first took on a female client, I didn't really like map out a phase. And I think just like having an idea of structure of what you want to do and what to achieve, and once they can kind of see that kind of play out, um, helps out a lot. Um,
Yeah. I also think, just to add to that, it like having a coach is just someone there to make the decisions for you.
yeah,
Like, you know, when you're being hard on yourself, or, you know, when you're like, I don't know about you, but I used to never ever take like deloads or devolumes. Like I hated doing it. Like I would always push through. And it's just someone to like tell you, like, no, you need to do this. And like just, you know, when you're like heads all over the place and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like when you first start, you're like, oh, should I go into a diet? Should I go into a growing phase? Like, what do I need to do? Like, it's just someone to like just tell you straight, like, you need to do this, and you need to do that. And even on like a weekly basis, it's just to have like that support, like things are heading in the right direction. You know, we don't need to make any changes, or we need to do this and we need to do that. It's just someone there to tell you what you need to do, because you can feel quite lost on your fitness journey, I think, when you first start, because, you know, there is so much information out there on social media where people are telling you like you should do this, and someone else is saying you shouldn't do this, and there's so much out there. And I feel sorry for people who like don't have a coach and don't have that direction from them, because there's just so much information out there. And it's like, what do I even do? You know, someone's saying to train to failure, and someone else is saying no, train with reps and reserve. Like,
I'd
what do you
lose
do?
my head. Like, if I came
Yeah.
into the industry now, as a beginner, I would genuinely lose my head, because like, I've been on TikTok before, and you'll just scroll, and like you said, someone, it'll be like, oh, you know, put leg extensions before your main compound, and then someone will be like, no, do it afterwards. And
Yeah.
like, I just say to people, and I've always said this, and I don't get it, and I found it. I used to be like Mr. Optimal, where it's just like, no, you have to do it this way. It has to be like, you have to do all this. But now I'm more like, well, do number one, do what you enjoy, because realistically, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to be consistent and you're not going to end up showing up. But as well as that, like, figure out what actually works for you and don't be afraid to try something just because it's against the grain. And like, I brought it up on multiple podcasts, but I always say, like, I used to do dual rope push downs because it was like the most optimal tricep movement. But like recently I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna try out an easy bar push down. And I've never in my life connected with my triceps but as good as I do, got a good enough pump. And like, I've missed out on that for like 2 years just because, like, you know, some 16-year-old on TikTok with a large following has told me to do it. And I'm just like, don't be afraid to do stuff and make mistakes. Like,
Yeah,
it's stupid, really.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Next question. Oh, this is a different one. I didn't see this one. Have you ever wanted to give up your coaching business? Why/how did you continue?
That's a very good question.
Mm.
Yes, I have. I think at the start of your coaching business, it's actually a lot harder than you think. Um, like it's like when I first started coaching, I did it all for free, and I got so many inquiries, and like I got loads of clients, and it was great. Like way more than I thought. And then as soon as I like started charging, everyone would just like drop off.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, you know, people will do anything for free, which is like fine, like I get that. And there definitely have been moments, you know, especially at this time of year, you don't get like that many. It's a very quiet time of year. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you're like consistently doing check-ins, you're consistently posting on Instagram, like you're literally doing everything you can, you know, I'm still like educating myself all the time, making sure I'm learning more, making sure like I post every single day on my stories, like active, doing all my client check-ins, all that, blah, blah, blah. And you still don't get the inquiries that you kind of hoped for. It's very disheartening.
Yeah, it's a big
And
kick in the teeth.
it is. And but then I think as bodybuilders, it's it's almost easier because we don't you know, with like growing phases, it's very much like delayed gratification. Like you won't, you know, if you go to the gym and you do a bicep curl, you're not going to get biceps straight away. So we know that like you just have to do the work every single day and it will pay off in future. So I think reminding myself of that is like really important. And there are moments where I'm like, someday I'm like, I haven't even posted today. It's got to the end of the day and I'm like, I just want to give up. Like I'm doing all this work and like nothing's happening.
Mm.
And then the next day I get an inquiry and I'm like, oh yay. It's a hard game. But I truly love it. I truly love coaching the girls that I coach. And I think that is what keeps me going. And as long as it is like having to post every day, like I know it'll pay off in future. So I don't want, like, one day I do want it to be my full-time job, but I know it's not going to be for a while. But it's just because I truly love doing it. So I just want to keep going. So yeah, what about you?
It's the exact same. Like, I think for me, it was more of like self-doubt. I openly talked about this in my story, and I think I even made a post about it. Before I joined Max, I was literally going to completely give up bodybuilding. Like, I lost my head to the point where I just I was so hard on myself that I just resented it. I was just like, I was pissed off if like my reps didn't look the exact same. I was so obsessed with like optimality that I just wasn't enjoying the process. And it just got to the point where I was so stressed out and it would just cause to me like beating myself up. I'd binge eat, I wouldn't go to the gym for a week, I'd start up again, and the cycle would just keep going on. And like the same thing kind of happened at a time where I was like, I think a lot of people with coaching, when they start it, they just kind of expect it to kind of go like this. I think everyone's a bit delusional in that sense, where you think like, oh, I'll post like 2 training clips and like everyone's gonna want to be my client. When like in reality, there's like a million people doing it.
Yeah.
And like for me, I think the biggest thing has been like self-doubt, especially like when you have lifestyle clients and like you're following a load of bodybuilding coaches and you see like these massive quick turnarounds where it's like oh, this client lost like 6 kg in 6 weeks, or like something really quick, like 12 kg in like, I don't know, 5 weeks or something. That would be ridiculous rate of loss, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And I think like what actually helped me was like I do in-person PT as well as online coaching, and like I have a client called Alex, and I kind of talked to him, and like I had a day in the gym where we were kind of doing his diet phase, and I was like, his rate of loss had just like stagnated, and we were like dieting to a point where like he just wasn't enjoying it. And I was like, I felt like breaking down. I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm a bad coach, and he was just like, mate, like as a lifestyle person, and this is the same with kind of what we said earlier, where you get lost in this bubble. Most people struggle to lose like zero point 0.1 of a kilo in a week. So when they like even lose a little bit of weight, that's massive to them. And I think
Yeah,
you kind of get in this bubble where it's like, oh, well, if they're not progressing at like a rate of a bodybuilder, they're not actually like doing well. And for me, it was more like, well, I'm failing as a coach. And then again, comparing myself to other coaches. And yeah, I think with anything, there's always going to be times where you self-doubt, and like I know for a fact, like I had self-doubt yesterday. Like I think it's always going to be in the back of your mind, but you've got to remember like why you're doing this. Like I'm like, from the content I've seen, you can see you're passionate about it. And like that is the biggest thing. I think if you're in coaching for the wrong reasons, and you're just like, you just want to make money out of it, that isn't a reason I went into it. Like I was a very, shy, not confident guy, and like I've seen the benefits like from coaching, and I just want to be able to bring that to other people. And I think if you can keep that at the forefront of your mind and just be patient and keep showing up every single day, you'll make it through the other end. And it's just keep showing up. You just be
100%.
resilient.
Yeah, I think if you're in that mindset, like that's where you're gonna last the longest. If you're not in that mindset, you're just gonna give up very, very quickly. And yeah, I think we've just got to keep going, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. You just got to keep turning up every single
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
Oh, this is a good question to lead on from that. What is the most rewarding aspect of being a coach, and what is the hardest?
Um, the most rewarding. This is a very good question. Oh, I love it when like I've had this girl for almost a year and a half, I think. And it's just to see, like, not even, she's had an amazing physical transformation, but that's not even half it. Like, just to see the mental transformation from like start to finish is absolutely insane. Like, when she came to me, and this is not just about her, this is about like other clients as well, but with this specific one, when she came to me, she had such a bad relationship with food. She was like very, very lean and just was so scared about like eating food and like putting on body fat. And now to the point where we've been for a whole bulk together, we've been for a diet, and now we're going for our second bulk. And now she gets excited about food increases. And like at the start, that would really, really scare her. And I just love it when people see the benefits and feel the benefits of like going through a growing phase like I do. When I'm because when they first come to me, like they're always very scared, and it's a very scary process, but be able to take them through it, and for them to see those amazing benefits that I try and tell people all the time, but for them to actually go through it and feel the same, and like feel confident in their growing phase and just really enjoy it and just love getting strong in the gym, like that is so rewarding to me, and I just love it when they like feed that back to me. That's my favorite. What about you?
Um, I would say like allowing like taking someone from a point where like they don't believe in themselves, basically like helping them recognize their own potential. Like don't get me wrong, yeah, sure, physique, like we're in the physique coaching business, and sure, it's sick to see someone grow, but again, like yourself, like I think the seeing someone like their mentality develop. Like I've had people like quit jobs they hated and like pursue careers due to it. I had a female client who just finished her diet phase. When she came to me, she was like very similar to the one you described. Like she had a terrible relationship with food. She dieted to the point where she lost her her cycle. She was like weighing out lettuce, like it was so bad. And now we're at a point where we're reversing out of this diet phase after successfully, carrying it out. And again, like you said, she's excited over food increases, and she's actually like asking for food increases. And just to kind of see like someone where they're kind of the shell of the person they can be, and then for it to kind of do a 180 and they start believing in themselves, and you see it impact like every other aspect of their life. And like I talked about this on the most recent YouTube video, which is going to come out like next Monday, shameless plug. But like recognizing your potential, and like there is so much more with bodybuilding and the gym, which I want people to realize. And like the main reason I do this podcast is like to speak to like-minded individuals and just like show people, like, for me, the biggest transformation has just been like mentality and the way I carry myself in everyday life. And I think so many people just kind of see bodybuilding as like this vain sport where it's just like people staying on stage, and they just think they're like, but it's not. It's literally like a metamorphosis where someone kind of goes into a cocoon and they come out like this beautiful butterfly. As corny as it sounds, but like it is like the reality.
Yeah.
You see someone like kind of the shell of a person completely transform.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah.
Someone else, leading on from that question, they said, what is the hardest part of being a coach?
The hardest part, I think, is at the minute for me, I do sometimes get some clients who either just like don't adhere, or they join and they almost like don't seem very like interested, or they don't want to do it. And I think that is really like disheartening for me, because I want to coach like long term, like people for a long time. I don't want to coach people for like a short amount of time. I think some people think that as a coach they just want to like go for a diet phase and they just want to do 6 weeks and then go.
12-week transformation turnover.
Yeah. And like you can do the transformation, it's fine, but I want to have long-term relationships with people. And it's not just about that quick transformation. Physique development takes a long time, but also like creating a relationship, and also like for you to progress your mentality and like your body image, and for you to improve on that side of things, like it takes a long time. And I think when people just come for like a quick transformation, it's a bit not disheartening, because it's great because you can take people through like a mini diet or something, but I just prefer to coach people for like a longer period of time, and I can help them better that way. But also like when people join and they just don't really do anything and then they cancel straight away, you get some of those, but it is what it is. You can't really do anything about it. But yeah.
I would say very similar. Like something I really struggle with where I started, I think of myself as like a people pleaser, and I want to be everyone's mate. And sometimes when it comes to like when you have to make those hard decisions where you have to push someone, sometimes I find, or like someone hasn't adhered. Sometimes I've found in the past, like I was too nice, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't like there's a very fine balance where you're like, look, I want to be this person's friend, but at the same time, you have to remember this person's paying you to get them where they want to be. And sometimes you kind of have to put your foot down and be like, look, mate, you need to kind of like improve X, Y, and Z, because otherwise we're not going to get there. And in the past, I think I kind of just babied them, and I was like, oh, it's okay, this went wrong. And don't get me wrong, obviously, I'm not saying don't be an asshole and just be like, fucking fix up. But like, there's a level of, you are being paid for a job. And you have to remember that sometimes, and be like, to get you where you want to be, sometimes you have to kind of be a bit more kind of harsh and allow them to kind of realize. I always think educating them on why they need to do it is a lot easier than just saying, okay, do more cardio, mate. You like do more cardio, mate, because if you don't at the moment, we'll have to put your calories down to a point where you're not going to be able to adhere to it. Like there's different ways you go around it. But yeah, I definitely say like that has always been a massive struggle for me. And again, like we're both into bodybuilding, so like the type of client you want, and like, look, I'm open to lifestyle people. I love them, and the majority of my clients are lifestyle, and I love them to pieces. But I think when you have someone join and, you know, like, I'm sure you're the same. Like, coaching is your baby. Like, you put so much effort into this, and like you pride yourself on building relationships with people. And I think I get a bit overly invested in people's journeys.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, you know, at the start, especially, you're like, you sometimes question, like, do I want this more than they want this? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that is always a bit hard to deal with, because you're like, you know, I'm putting in this effort, but is it kind of, again, you kind of second guess yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a very fine line, back to what you were saying before. There's a very fine line between like being too harsh and also like trying to get them to be adherent. Um, and it's definitely a hard one, because I think people, like, you almost have to learn and understand how people react to certain things, like whether they need like a really harsh like telling off almost, or whether you need to be like a little bit nicer with it. So you always need to like, you know, the first few weeks is almost just getting to know the person and
That's
how you speak to them as well, because some people can, you know, they can deal really well with you like telling them off and being like, look, come on, like you need to crack on with it. But then some people like won't take that very well and be like, oh,
I'm
like,
dropping off. Like, yeah,
yeah. So you always like, you know, when people join for like a couple of weeks just for a transformation, like it's not enough time to get to know someone and to understand like how they work, how their bodies work, you know, like how their bodies respond to food and stuff like that. Like it takes so much time to get to know someone. So yeah, it's hard when they just want to stay for a little bit just to get a quick transformation and then leave. But yeah, it's just the game, isn't it?
I always find with 12-week transformations as well, like, I should do a post about this, but like, if you're going to a coach with like 12 weeks as the idea of like a turnaround, realistically, you're going to go through a very aggressive diet phase, right? But during that time, 12 weeks is not enough time to get educated on like how to manage your everyday life, how to manage, you know, stress, how to manage going out and eating correctly, how to have a good, you know, relationship with food. And I think a lot of these people who kind of do these 12-week transformations, they then just kind of go through like this yo-yo diet period, and they don't see the benefit of actually investing in a coach. Yeah.
Yeah, because people seem to think that, you know, when you do like a 12-week diet, like that's it. You know, you just go back to your normal eating and, you know, just go back to normal and you'll be fine, you know, like it doesn't work like that. So I think that's why it's really important to have a coach, because they can tell you like how to sustain it like afterwards, you know, and staying with them longer can, you know, you can help them reverse out of the diet and stuff like that. Like yeah, I don't believe in these 12-week transformations, but that's just me.
Did you get any questions on yours?
I did. Um, there was one similar one, and then someone was asking what my plans are for competing, which I did touch on before. But yeah, the plan is 2026. Obviously in the figure division. And yeah, we're just gonna keep going until then. Honestly, I just think you need to see what I look like in my next diet. I think it's very hard to tell when you're deep in off season and you cannot see any muscle under there. Like it's mainly body fat. So I think it's just a case of like going through growing phases, going through diet phasing, seeing how I'm looking in the diet. And then we'll just go from there. I'm honestly just leaving it up to Loz and letting her make the decisions and seeing when I'm ready in that. But yeah, it's always a scary one, I think, because, you know, when you prep, you'll never know what you look like until you get to like stage lean. So I always think it's a bit of a scary one, especially with females, because they hold so much more body fat. So, you know, in your off season, you might look like you have massive legs and then you diet down and you haven't got much there. So I think it's a hard one to judge, but I think 2026 is probably going to be the year. Also because of like life as well. I've got a lot of things going on and I want to move out by the time I compete, so I don't really want to prep at home. So like things like that. So like my life needs to be in place, which I think some people forget about. You know, if they have a lot of stresses in their life going on, you know, if they're at uni or, you know, they have a lot of stuff going on in their life, it's probably like not the best time to prep. So I want to make sure that my life is like where I want it to be before I prep.
Well, at least you have a partner who will understand the process. That's a massive win, you know. Could be a
Yeah,
lot less.
yeah, I'm very grateful for that. Because I don't know what I'd do. Yeah, I know that it's a bit of a weird one because some people really don't understand bodybuilding, or they may not be like supportive of it, but I'm very grateful to like have Charlie, and we basically do it together. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, what are your competing plans?
I'm basically I'm very similar to yourself. Like, I have no, I'm not rushing. Like I've never really committed to an off season really. Like I've always been like similar in the sense that, I'd get to like half, I'd say like a quarter of a way through the off season, see like all my lines disappear and just think I'm fat and just give up. Um, but like I'm confident now with Max, we'll be able to kind of push up because we've developed a very good relationship. But the plan is just to have a very, very big off season. Hopefully my weight goes up because at the moment it's just not playing ball.
Or is it not?
I'm on 600 grams of carb. I'm eating
Oh
3,600
no.
calories a day, and my weight is just not budging. Good news is appetite's in an amazing spot. Like literally,
Good.
I'm breezing through the food. Um, but yeah, I'm just hoping I'm not going to be on like 1,200 grams of like carbs a day because that will just be like nightmare scenes. But yeah, just have a very successful off season. I'm not rushing it. Literally, as soon as Matt says like we're ready to go, and similar to yourself, like I want to make sure I'm in a situation where I can prep because I want to move out. I want to make sure I have like a good circle around me. I don't have a load of like work stress because at the moment like my level of expenditure I'm doing like I think I average like 18,000 steps across the week, so that in a prep setting loading vans on top of trying to manage training performance just isn't ideal. So yeah, just not rushing it, take it when it's there and just go from there essentially.
Think it's a really good place to be in,
Hmm.
especially if appetite is really good at this point.
Hmm.
Hopefully you can keep pushing and pushing, but yeah, definitely don't want to get to 1,200 grams of carbs. That would be awful, but
Yeah.
yeah, sounds good. What do you know what division you want to compete in?
um I want to do classic. Like I feel like I have decent shape. Like I have very wide clavicles and I do have like a narrow waist. But like again, if we I feel like once we get to the end of this off season, like again, I'm not gonna force that division. If Max says like, look, I think you'd be better suited to this, I'll do it. I want to do classic just because I would like to learn how to pose and like do a nice routine and flow with it and be like C-Bum because I'm a massive fan. But there is no chance in hell I will ever shave a mustache. I'm not that much of a fanboy. I'm not doing that. Uh, I just think just get your own style. Just stop copying it, man.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
yeah, but yeah, I'll see kind of what Max says, and we'll kind of go from there. Essentially,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
fantastic. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on, Anna.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much for having
everyone.
me.
Thank you everyone for listening. Please rate 5 stars. Tag us, both me and Anna, if you do watch it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.